live event, and the YouTube live event just finished. So there's no event for it to connect to.
The live event. If it didn't, you will get the same chat room.
It's 8 seconds long, Rocco.
Yeah,
it's 8 seconds long. Yep.
It's fantastic. So I don't know. I think we're live, to be honest with you. YouTube is showing us live, but there's nobody in chat, so I don't know. They're all in the other one.
Oh yeah, we are live too.
Yeah, we are live,
That's
but all of the YouTube people are in the other chat. That's still there.
Nope. I see people. They're coming up.
I have to restream.
They're starting to show. Yeah.
So
people are coming.
Well, they have to.
I guess
figure out to restart themselves.
You could say we're open for business.
If you build it, they will come.
Wow, dude! I'm telling you, this is becoming so awesome with Zoom and YouTube. It's just fantastic.
This first world problem that we have, you know?
Really?
You're like.
Anyway, enough of that business. We are going to have our open forum for the first hour, and we'll get into standby. Got to mute people. Can't think here. Standby. Okay, we are going to have our open forum for the first hour, and then we are going to do our normal whatever discussions about certain topics and about our must-have apps and everything else. So I guess, Thomas kind of wants to talk about a purchase he made, so I guess we'll hand it over to him first and let him talk about it. Thomas.
Caught in the headlights. I was distracted there for a minute. So yeah, I'm in the middle of buying a what did I say it was? Raspberry Pi 8 gig. That's it.
Really, dude?
I'm sorry. Like I said, here in the headlights. Yeah, so I'm in the middle of buying a Raspberry Pi 8 gig for two major reasons. One, I want a Raspberry Pi 8 gig. I've wanted one for a while. Actually, correction. 3 reasons. I want a Raspberry Pi 8 gig. I've been wanting one for a while. 2, so you can take a Raspberry Pi and cast to it if you set it up right, like with a Chromecast or a Roku. But I thought I could do that with a Rock Pro 64, but apparently you can't because the libraries are somewhat hardware specific. So rip that idea. So wow. I'm getting one of them to do that. But I also am going to be using it for hardware testing for Draugr OS on ARM because I need testing. So yeah. And I learned from getting the Rock Pro 64 that while 4 gigs on an ARM device is okay, if you're going to be running a desktop OS, having 8 gigs makes it way nicer.
Anybody else getting an 8 gig Pi? No?
I got a 4 gig.
For my blood.
I will be. It's just a matter of when. In a month or 2.
I haven't pulled the trigger on it yet, but I want one.
Thomas?
Yes.
How much are they charging for it?
So that depends on how much accessories you're getting. I'm getting mine through Amazon.
Okay.
Because I need a charger for it because all of my USB-C stuff is either going to be 5 volts in the 2 amp range or fast charging, which is 9 volts, 1 amp. And you plug either of those into there. The 9 volts, 1 amp will fry your Raspberry Pi. Whereas the 5 volts, 1 amp, or 5 volts, 2 amp, it won't boot. You need specifically 5 volts, 3 amp. The only other thing I think I have that could do that would be my mom's laptop charger. And I don't want to risk it sending in way too much power and frying the thing because it's like $100. So, yeah. Yeah, I needed to get a specific charger for it. I was wanting a cooler for it. I was planning on getting something active anyway because I hear they get very, very hot. And I don't want to risk burning my precious little tendies. And the one I'm getting doesn't just have the charger and some cooling. It also has a case that I can put it in. So it's not just going to have like a bare PCB. So that'll be nice. Yeah.
Jinda?
Yeah, I got a Raspberry Pi 4 gig. The two things that increased it the best was running ZRAM on it, which is a very common thing to use. I'm pretty sure a lot of the Linux distros that boot off the ISO use ZRAM. But it's not in by default for some reason, which I'm still confused why you wouldn't default that in. Your cell phone, I know, uses ZRAM. I strongly recommend that. The second thing I did is I overclocked the hell out of it. You can. I monitored the temperatures. If you're running a heatsink and a fan on it, you can. I go to 2 gigahertz on mine, which really increased the quality of it. So,
Jinda, what do you use it for?
You know, for learning purposes. I did a let's see here. Oh my God, I did so many servers with it. It was insane. You know, I did a Pixie server with it. I did a the little gaming servers. They had RetroPie, and then they have all kinds of other ones to make game emulator servers for it, like a little game station. And you can go through and pick which video game system you want to run, from Nintendo to Atari to this to that. I had to play with all those because I'm a child and I loved it. You know what I mean? And, and then I played with Open Media Vault, and then I played with a Plex server with it. And then I used it as a regular desktop to learn how to do like ZRAM and SSH. And how to hack. There's a YouTube channel called Network Chuck. He teaches you how to hack stuff every once in a while.
Big channel.
He had a hack. Yeah. And it's an awesome channel to go to learn stuff. And I lit up my Raspberry Pi and turned on hash what have you and hashcat and all this stuff and learned how to hack stuff. And I mean, it's quiet. It doesn't make any noise. It takes no power. I mean, it's portable, and I don't have to worry about screwing anything up like my real PC. You know what I mean? I don't need to use it tomorrow, the standard stuff that Tom's going to do with it. Actually, I do the same things he wants to do it. Learn how to cast things to it.
Yep.
Well, I also, like I said, was going to do some hardware testing for Drugger OS on ARM. And the way I'm planning on distributing this, there's a single image file that's supposed to support as many ARM devices as possible. And I haven't seen another project doing this before. And I need multiple devices to test this on. And I know it should work perfectly fine with the 4 gig version. So I wanted an 8 gig version so I can actually go, okay, this is what I have for the 4 gig version. This is what most people who are actually going to be gaming on ARM with a device like this are going to have. So if somebody gets the 8 gig model, how much more performance are they going to get?
Very nice.
If you look at the CPU specs, the Rock Pro 64 is actually supposed to be faster. If what I can find is true, because the Raspberry Pi, I think, is quad core, whereas the Rock Pro 64 is hex core, and it clocks up to 2 gigahertz, whereas the Raspberry Pi is like 1.8, I think. Correct me if I'm wrong. Maybe. So.
All right, Colin, I'm going to let you interrupt here because you had messaged me earlier and wanted to talk about something, so let's do it.
Well, first of all, I missed you, Rocco, so I messaged you.
Right.
Reason. I had a guy message me on one of my YouTube videos in chat regarding overheating of a laptop, and he said it's really not covered much in the Linux space at all. So I said to him, I might bring it up, because my first question to him was, had you installed TLP? Because that seems to be the most popular power management application we have within Linux, from my knowledge anyway. He has a ASUS ROG 552 VW. I don't know if that means anything. Core i7 6700 HQ. Now, he said he tried many distros. If I could find where he said that, just give me a minute. He tried Manjaro, Cinnamon. He tried Mint, XFC, and Cinnamon, Linux, Manjaro, XFC, and KDE Plasma, None of those worked. He has landed on Ubuntu Deepin desktop environment, which apparently has so far managed his power for the laptop at the moment, which was, I thought, very interesting. So I just thought I'd bring this topic up and see if anyone else had any other power management tools that they knew about for Linux.
Well, I'm not a laptop guy, so you guys are going to have to. Shickle, Dan, come on.
Well, incidentally, I kind of sort of made a video with Jason Evangelo and Linux for Everyone on a specific piece of software called Auto CPU Freak or Frick, whatever you want to. It's hard to say, but basically what it does is it works in conjunction with TLP, and it will monitor the resource usage of your CPU and different cores, and it'll adjust like turbo boost leveling, and it will adjust your power states and like what performance modes you're at. And it will also change based on whether you're plugged in or not. So in tandem with TLP, I saw almost a 2-hour gain on my laptop personally. So
Wow.
it was a pretty great thing to have on there. So
Shickle, do you have a link?
Out. Oh gosh, probably.
You can throw in there. Throw it in the YouTube chat.
So Joe Lamoth, he swears by the System 76 power management stuff. So that might be another avenue. I mean, I guess you could just throw in Pop OS and see what you got for power management there. But I think you can add their PPA. It's probably not supported, obviously, but I think you can add their PPA and add the power management tools. Yeah, that's his go-to thing.
Dan, didn't you mean Joe Lamoth?
Yeah, the guy that doesn't show up.
Okay,
yeah, him.
Right.
I blame him completely.
No, it's actually Lamoth, but I just figured I'd give him a hassle because
see if we can pull him out of the
wrong.
woodwork. I mean,
he doesn't want to show up anymore. Dude. He doesn't like us anymore.
I guess so.
Big Pod, go ahead.
Well, he should also check what his UEFI/BIOS says, because that is at the end in the controls. So that could have a bad fan curve or something like that, with which the fan itself, no matter what he would run, will just work badly, and you should probably check that out as well.
Okay.
All right. Anybody else? Well, there you go, Colin. You can definitely send him Shickle's video, and
yeah, I will. I'll have a look for that. I'm pretty sure I'm subscribed to you guys. I'm sure.
The new Shickle, you have a new channel, don't you?
Yeah, well, that might be an LFE one too.
Oh, you're right.
Kind of
it
one
is.
of those weird ones, yeah.
Yeah, you're right. Okay.
All right. Can I just ask Shickle, what's the name of that application again? What was it?
Auto CPU FREQ.
Yep. Okay. Yep.
Yeah, it's a weird
remember
one.
you guys talking about that. Yeah, I do remember that.
Yeah, Linux names.
Thank you.
Yeah, names are great here in Linux land. Yeah.
Joshua.
Yeah.
Hello, everyone. It's been a while. How is my microphone?
It's fine. It's fine, brother.
All right. So, a few things that I want to talk about. First off, it's now the end of DevConf 20 this week. I don't know if any of you or anyone who was listening was there, but had a great time, and I hope to see everyone again next year. So that's what this week was. Lots of cool stuff to talk about, including some other projects like app repositories and other user environments dedicated for Docker. And it's still there somewhere on the DevConf 20 website. Now, about what I was going to mainly talk about was I've been experimenting with Java a little bit, which I know sounds stupidly ridiculous, but Java's been my first language. So yeah, Big Pod, I can already see you know what this is. So I'm just going to give you guys a second to embrace the following words. I'm going to try to make a Java desktop environment.
Really?
Yes.
That is a
please
pretty
no.
big undertaking. It's not like it hasn't been done before, so I mean, it's possible.
Okay,
It's
so
a good
the
learning
world
Needs
Figures.
more
experience.
insecure operating systems.
As a developer, I am triggered by this.
I warned you guys. I warned you. I said you need to take it in. You know, I warned you.
Thomas, I've been trying to talk him down for quite a long time now.
At least, please keep it very, very simple so it doesn't run like a slug.
No.
Yes. Performance issues.
Oh,
is what you'd have to worry
Yes,
about with
because
Java.
he's right. It's great for security. Don't get me wrong. If you need to make something super secure, do it in Java. Okay? If you're going to make anything else, don't use Java. Even if you're making an Android app, do the bare minimum of Java. You absolutely have to, because Android apps require Java to some extent, but do the rest in C++. There's a reason that nobody uses it now.
I'm gonna cry.
Android
Yeah,
apps now
the
use
reason why I use Java is
Kotlin mainly.
because C++ hurts my brain. 1 second.
Well, it does hurt your brain, but it hurts your computer less.
It does. And if you want decent performance, but you don't want to deal with C++ or C in a desktop environment, then my suggestion would be literally starting with Python. And then once you have the code written the way you want and all that, you can start converting to C++ because you can actually import C++ libraries to Python and use them like that. So you can just take the heavier things, convert them to C++, and work like that until the entire thing is C++, and you have a nice desktop environment written in a nice, fast language.
So I have
Maybe
two
not
things to
nice, but
contribute
fast it
here.
is.
Thank you for the and cute, beautiful Python advertisement, which I will sadly decline as I have other stuff to worry about instead of needing to fuss with language to language. Now, because I was making some cookies on the way downstairs, let's do this real quickly because I know your brain hurts already. So here's the idea. So basically, by the way, we should start with a window manager. And yes, I know that sounds foolishly ridiculous. Now, actually, you technically could do this. You would think, oh, well, window manager is just like a random blank screen that you can just stack on X11. And you know, you can do that, but you can't move any windows. You can't define any borders. I think that Java is actually bad on the front end, I think. But it's kind of bad with that. So
will Java WM or whatever you want to call it support Wayland?
Yeah.
Got it. So anyway, I was just like, Dan, this is pointless. And people have tried making other window managers in Java. Just use C++ or OpenBox. That's what I really just came down to because I was like, it's pointless. There's no need to literally rewrite everything. So
But at least something normal came from this project.
Unless you're just doing it as a true learning experience.
Yes, yes.
I mean, if
like
you're really-
installing Arch, right?
If it's literally just a learning experience, fine. I still think this is a terrible idea doing it in Java, but
I mean, I agree with you, Thomas.
Stop bullying.
I really do.
Wait, Barb, did
Not
you just
bullying.
say you agree with Thomas?
it's a first.
That
Write it
is a
down.
first.
Yeah, that's a bad thing, but it is true.
I'm an
Big Pod
objective
thinks
person,
that your
guys. Come on.
desktop environment should be written in C#, I bet.
No!
No.
No, he's going with
That's
F sharp.
fine.
Even
Windows.
I am not for C# written.
Hey, Josh, have you thought of a name,
even though
Josh?
I am C# guy.
Hey,
Let me
Josh,
just
have you thought of a
finish
name?
So y'all can stop bullying me, okay? So I ended up
It's
going
not bullying,
OpenBox.
it's
I
constructive
decided-
criticism.
Josh, Aris has a question for you.
Have you thought of a name for this new
Oh
desktop?
God, go ahead. What's the question?
Have you thought of a new of a name for the desktop?
Oh yeah, I'm just gonna name it JDE, Java Desktop Environment.
That's
Not like anybody
already a
else wants.
thing.
Yeah, that's
Isn't
a
Not
there
like
already
trademark.
anybody else is stupid enough like me to create desktop environment on Java.
Can you call it Beans desktop environment?
Yeah, beans.
BDE
Shut up.
Beans?
Beans
Mindy.
desktop
Yeah, like
environment.
Java.
Sounds like
Java
Beans.
beans. Yeah.
I don't use NetBeans, so if that's what you're referring to, no. I use
Java
Well,
beans.
it's because Java is like the whole thing's a pun on coffee. So there's
Right,
lots of
coffee
Java.
beans.
That's
Yeah.
why it's net beans because coffee.
Yeah.
Okay.
Maybe you can make it the Latte
Okay, guys,
desktop
I'm
environment.
sorry,
Use
but, like,
Latte.
So
dock.
we're gonna get this show back on the rails here because we went totally off the rails for some reason. Because Joshua usually does that to the show, but anyway, there was an email sent in from White Chocolate. He's usually in the YouTube chat, and he has a question, and I'm not exactly sure what the motive of the question is, but he says, "What would be your desired timetable on your ISO media file being updated? Like, how often would you like it to be updated? 6 months, a year, possibly longer, and why?" Now, I guess he's talking about, like, say if Ubuntu comes out, how often do you want that updated? I mean, to me, I install it and I don't go back to it.
I think it's like an ISO refresh. So like Ubuntu whatever is 3 months old now, and there's a bunch of updates, and you just have an ISO that has all those updates built in instead of having to do
But
that
that's
afterwards.
what the point releases are for, right?
Yeah.
Right.
I think he's saying how often do you want to see those come out?
Well, in my opinion, it all differs between different types of distros. If it's static release distro, it can be a bit longer window than, let's say, with Arch or something like that, where if ISO is a few months old, of course, not Arch itself because it has native installer, but let's say Arco. If it's a few months old, it's already too old, and you can have problems installing it. So it all depends on what kind of release type distro it is. If it's a rolling release, it must be shorter window than if it's a static release, where it might not change that much.
I would have to say, I'd have to say a good example of that would be Solus, because I've installed Solus in the past. Now they are, I'm pretty sure, rolling. They're definitely rolling, but they update their ISO. Now, if it's been a few months since they've done their release, you could have so many updates it could just about get to the point where it could crash the system because of the aggressive rolling updates that they do. So I would say that would be a good example as to how often should they implement a new ISO.
Right.
Sorry.
No, go ahead, Dan.
For Tumbleweed, because it also being a rolling release, OpenSUSE has they have this tool called Kiwi, which is for building your own ISOs, and so that's what they use that for the ISO. But so literally you get, as far as I know, you literally get a new ISO for every snapshot, because it's all automated, it's all built in, and it's not that they don't have to do that much work to build the ISO.
I think it's a combination of how often you plan on reinstalling compared to how solid the update software is in the distro you're installing. Because, some like Ubuntu, you can come back 8 months later, use the same original ISO, and the updates software included is solid enough that it will bring you up to date. You can't do that with Arch, but if you're only installing Arch once a year, you only really need it updated once a year when you go back to install it. It's kind of a balance between how often you plan on reinstalling this operating system and how solid the updating software is.
I think it might not just come down to reinstalls, though, because you also have to look at hardware support. If you can't even get the distro installed in the first place because the ISO is too old to boot, but updates to the OS support your hardware, then you're waiting for months and months and months and months to eventually be able to use that. So, like, if I buy a new graphics card, like I did this earlier this year, I couldn't use the latest version of Ubuntu until like 2004 came out.
That's because you went red.
Believe it or not, I had a similar thing happen to me with Arch, which sounds impossible, but it happened. It was like I wanted to set up a B cache, and you need to do that on the live ISO, and so I had to install like a package or something, but then it updated everything, and there was a new kernel, and it complained that there was a kernel mismatch. So you're never safe.
Simon?
Well, the other thing, Shickle for me would be what percentage of people really use, besides us, use cutting edge hardware.
Oh yeah, it's pretty low.
mean-
I'm definitely off the deep end there.
So am I. But a lot of people are more into cutting edge software than cutting edge hardware.
Yeah.
Although I would say to that I think there's a lot of people that they're not looking for cutting edge hardware, but they get it anyway, not intentionally, but just because this year they get a new laptop and it has all these fancy new parts inside it that maybe
AMD will do that to you.
Well, there's nothing wrong with that. Anyway,
no.
Yeah.
Thomas, you've got your hand up. Go right ahead.
So, as a developer myself, I update the Drugger OS beta ISOs weekly. Like, I literally just now, a few seconds ago, uploaded the new ISO. And the reason I do it that often is because, A, I don't like my users having to wait around it on install when updates are applying, because it takes a while sometimes, especially when there's a new kernel. And especially if they have to, compile NVIDIA drivers. That can take a while sometimes, especially on low-end hardware. If you have an MX 150, whatever it is, and a dual core processor with no hyperthreading, it can take a while. So by having all that in there already, so you don't have to wait for it to download, it's not as big of an issue. But it's also, as a beta, you expect it to be updated a lot more often. So that saves a little bit of time there. Now, once it's a stable release, I only update it monthly, because while I still update the repositories, I've got other things going on in my life. I can do other things. I'm not spending as much time on development now because it's not a beta. It's stable. So I feel like that sort of cadence weekly for betas and monthly for stable releases is a good balance, because that way you're not spending all your time on updating these ISOs, but you're also updating the ISOs often enough that you don't have a user waiting around for months on end like some people do when you get brand new hardware and it's not supported yet. But you also you're not updating it so often that it's taking up all your time because you have other things to do.
Good points. Barb, go right ahead.
Okay, I was going to, I know Daniel said something about with Tumbleweed. What I've noticed with OpenSUSE Tumbleweed is that I think they do, they update the ISO about monthly. So if you go back a month from now and say, oh, I want to download it, it's not the same one that's sitting there on your hard drive that you did not do anything with. So I think the monthly probably works out really well. Like as Thomas was saying, oh my goodness, I'm agreeing with him twice.
Wow.
Yeah, no, but the monthly, once things are pretty stable, that would make sense. I mean, to do it more than that, you're going to spend all day doing nothing but updating, repackaging. That's kind of a waste of time. Oh, you're keeping count, Dan.
Yeah.
He's waiting.
I'm in the middle of updating the biddle rules, to be honest. I thought we made
Wow.
it.
Holy mackerel.
Tony, you got your hand up.
Yeah, as a frequent distro hopper, I want them updated, well, almost hourly, but realistically, weekly, I suppose, would be good, or monthly
Yeah.
at the most.
Before it exists.
That would even be better. Just, looking at it from that perspective, that was all.
Yep. Well, look, this week has been a busy week as far as work is concerned, and I have not been listening to as many podcasts as I usually do. Like, I am so far behind on my list, but I did get to hear Linux Unplugged and the whole JB thing. What do you guys think about that? Where Jupiter Broadcasting is going back to being its own thing and splitting from a Cloud Guru and Linux Academy.
Yay.
I mean, don't all speak at once. I mean,
Yeah.
Man, there was crickets in the room there, wasn't there?
That's impressive.
Well,
I think it's kind of great. In a way, I think they'll be able to focus. Obviously, have singular focus, and that's always a good thing.
Yeah. I
Well-
think a lot of shows kind of got the short end of the stick between various situations, and I think that this is probably a chance for them to kind of make themselves whole again.
But I see that there was a few like shows that made it and didn't make it in this transition.
Yeah.
So like Linux Headlines is not. So I don't know if you guys saw the tweet, but they put out like a 27-second audio clip saying that Linux Headlines was going to be sunsetted, for the time being. And then Chris had announced, I think, Linux Action News is coming back with Joe. So it's like there's a lot. Drew is looking for work. I don't know who else is looking for work. It's a shame that it happened this way. Like, it's a shame for the people that are looking for work because they're good people.
Yeah,
but
I agree with that.
I think in the long run it'll be for the better. Because I mean, those are high on the podcast list to listen to. Some of those.
Mm-hmm.
Does anybody know if like I don't know which specific shows besides Linux Action News and Linux Headlines are staying or going? So it's like self-hosted staying. I know they're doing Coder Radio now, but is like self-hosted staying? Is some of the other shows staying?
I listened to self-hosted, but I haven't heard anything about whether they're leaving or staying.
Yeah. Well, in this kind of situation where you're like, you go and you're basically sold or bought out by a company, and then you have to split from that company. Definitely some bodies laying on the ground, but I think ultimately it's a good thing. I'm happy for Chris that he's actually able to have his own thing again, where it's not run by somebody else, or at least he was still running it, but they had like overseeing capabilities as well. So yeah, I'm happy for him. What do you guys think about the whole? Now, I mean, it's getting weird, dude. But what do you guys think about the whole Manjaro thing?
I'm scared.
What Manjaro thing? I
I
haven't
mean,
heard anything.
I mean, I think that sums up what I was thinking, Shickle.
Manjaro. Like every time I think of Manjaro, a lot of the time I get very scared because if you were to just throw a random window manager or desktop environment at Manjaro, they'll manage, even if it's something like i3, which by default looks very ugly, they'll make it into this beautiful thing magically. They scare me.
Well, we're really not talking about that, Joshua. We're talking about what happened with Manjaro. So
Yeah, I don't know what happens with Manjaro. So what happened with Manjaro?
No, they lost their forums, and
So-
that shows they didn't have good backups, or they had backups. They lost those backups as well. But in a way, it's good they started anew. Maybe the forum could be more focused and better in a way, or worse. You never know.
I still
I don't
see a
know.
lot of activity there. So
Whatever is good with them, I guess.
Well, the whole situation is like getting weirder by the day. I can tell you that. And
He is scared.
watching their social media accounts and stuff and things that are coming out, like I love Phil and I love Bernhard and I love the Manjaro project, but some of the stuff that's going on is like just really weird. That's all I can say.
It's got you shaking your head a little bit, and I don't know. It seems like the more news you see, I don't know. It just makes you wonder, right?
Yep.
So on the oh goodness, what day was it? It was like 5 days ago. There's no date showing on my timeline here, but there was essentially a post on the Manjaro forums, coupled with a tweet that was a bit targeted and aggressive towards NVIDIA and maybe a bit inflammatory in general, misleading in some ways. And since then, the I don't know how you say his name, but I'm just gonna say Philem has apologized and rephrased a lot of his statements, and definitely seems to be aware that the community had some issue with the form of conduct that had taken place. But I think the timing is very unfortunate for this kind of thing to happen on top of their forum mishaps, and then for that kind of thing to happen on top of the weird funding mishaps. It's just been a streak of really rainy days. So
yeah, that's a good way to put it.
Yeah.
Yeah, when it rains, it pours, I guess.
The
I don't know.
NVIDIA thing, it
Yeah.
seemed to me like a thing where late at night, Philip posted this thing and he was not in full possession of his senses, but then he fell asleep. And so a forest fire started overnight.
It did. It really did.
That's pretty accurate. Yeah.
It was a bad time to fall asleep.
Yeah,
That's for
it
sure.
was. Yeah. Well, okay, but see, you know, when you're in control of a project like that, and then frustrating things happen, because I'm sure it's frustrating for them to deal with, like, we talk about NVIDIA, and I love, you know, my NVIDIA card, and we as users expect it to just be there. We expect the drivers to just be there and it all to work perfect, but I'm sure it's a headache for the developers, for guys in the Manjaro project and every other project out there to deal with NVIDIA itself and the drivers the way they are, and to try to make them work cohesive, like for people that really don't want to have to do a whole lot to install them. And then, you know, like you said, Shickle being, I don't know, he had even said it was late at night and he had fell asleep or whatever, but man, that's just, yeah, I don't know. Bad timing.
Yeah, well, I will say that, you know, we do kind of keep kicking the can down the road as far as NVIDIA drivers and adding on the binary blob thing to the kernel and all that stuff. So, I mean, I don't think it's going to go away. I don't see how it can go away. We lose a lot of people, I think, in doing so, and that's probably not good either. So, I'm not sure what the great solution is.
There is no great solution, because NVIDIA would have to come out. Let's just say, let's put it this way. Let's say NVIDIA starts helping out and making it work in the kernel at the lower level like AMD does. Does that fix everything? I mean,
no.
Does that like make our world that much better? I'm not sure it does.
I would say that it would mean that you would free up a lot of developer energy to work on other stuff. Like every distro that has to work on packaging NVIDIA and dancing around the various technical and legal issues therein. If it was just in the kernel, then they could focus on something else, and then you wouldn't have stuff happening like where. Like with Serpent Linux, where IQ was like, yeah, it's just too much work. We're not going to do it. This is just like our research project. It's too much work.
Yes, but even like the newer cards that come out for AMD, you're waiting a certain amount of time for them to be available in the kernel. So it doesn't. What I'm saying is, it doesn't make everything smooth and perfect. It does. You do have a point though, Daniel. It would free up some developer time for them to less headaches, but I don't know if it makes our world perfect. So
from user perspective, nothing changes in reality. Beyond few more steps to get it running, nothing really changes.
Perhaps fewer mysterious breakages with well, I mean, there's the new hardware issue, but fewer mysterious breakages with new kernels. That has happened to me.
Never happened to me. Been running for.
Well, I like rolling releases.
So you like living on the edge.
I ran Arch for a long time on this laptop, and never had a breakage from a kernel because of NVIDIA.
I do know that NVIDIA is on Arch is broken right now. I do know that twice about a year ago when I did run Arch, that NVIDIA broke my install twice. Of course, DKMS did not help things, but
yep. What are you gonna do? All right. Anybody got anything they want to discuss before we go into our app?
Well, just
list?
to light you guys on fire, I'm
I don't think we need much help with that tonight.
I discovered that I really kind of like Chrome OS, and I've started using it a lot lately. And I see. Yeah, it's been interesting, and I'm looking forward to it. I plan on trying to figure out different workflows with it and kind of see what most of the draw is. I know what the draw is for me, but I kind of want to look at like the general consumer market and how more lean and less sort of complex or heavy devices could probably be useful. And
well, what do you like? What do you like about it, Chico? What do you like most?
it's like really fast in ways I don't understand. Like there's no delay between any actions whatsoever, and like even on a really really fast machine, like with any other OS, I don't experience this. So that's been mind blowing. But also it's really efficient. Like battery life has been by far the most impressive thing I've seen on Chrome OS or Chromium OS based devices. Like it barely does anything, and maybe that's because it barely does anything, but it's impressive. And I think for people who have things to do, like writing documents, or people who have to take notes at shows or in the classroom or anything like that, I think this is much more effective than the traditional Windows or Mac OS or Linux environment, because I mean it's kind of purpose built for those leaner workflows.
What do you guys think?
Sorry.
I think first of all, I think it's it's optimized for whatever hardware it's on. So you've got Chromebook A, it's optimized. Chrome OS is optimized for it, and I think that's what makes it so fast. That it doesn't have to sit there and think and whatever and compatible. But what really intrigued you, I guess, was my question.
Honestly, at first I just did it to be silly. I just wanted to see what would happen. I decided if I install this on like the most powerful machine I have, like it would be such a waste. And so when I started using it, I found out I kind of liked it. There was something strangely charming about it, that like it is limited in some ways, but I realized that a lot of what I do is on the web anyway. In fact, like the only thing that I don't really do on the web is like video editing and playing Minecraft. Everything else I can do online with like Stadia for gaming, or there's even online video editors that I just found, and they are limiting in terms of like bandwidth, but are otherwise fairly capable because you don't have to do the processing on your machine. So I think it's mostly just this switch from everything being local to having the ability to not rely on expensive personal devices to get everything done when you have, like the world's biggest cloud connected to it.
Mm-hmm. But what so how many different Chromebooks have you already bought?
7.
7?
Yeah.
I had a feeling it was going to be something like that. Because
Dan, I don't think there's any help for him.
No, I don't know where to go with that one.
I guess he lost his Linux card.
Yeah, well, the good thing is most of them are rather inexpensive, like in comparison, so it helps. It really helps.
I know, they're like a couple $100.
Yeah.
Yeah, but still, okay, 7.
Yeah.
Now, have you actually tried to install it on like hardware that was not designed for Chrome OS?
Yes, I'm actually using something called Cloud Ready right now, which is Chromium OS.
I've seen that. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's kind of cool.
That's actually what I'm using right now on my desktop, which is like an 8-core Ryzen 7 and a RX 5700 XT. So, I mean, I'm not gonna lie, it's stupid.
But it's fun.
Actually, just
it's fun.
But it's really fascinating to see how different it is than everything else that I've become accustomed to, and I think that's kind of the thing. Is it's just the sheer switch from that traditional workflow that I'm used to.
Yeah, it's cool actually.
It's a
It
learning
really is.
experience.
Yeah, you've got to have a either a YouTube video about it at some point or a blog post.
Oh
your experiences, because that actually is cool.
It really doesn't seem like it would be that much of a leap for you, having already shifted from traditional OSs to, snaps and flat packs, and making that mental shift, away from locally installed apps and to shift from flat packs and snaps over to a more web-based. I mean, from all the stuff you've talked about in the past, it seems like you, of a lot of us, were best suited to make that transition smoothly.
I think a lot of it as well is that it presents a challenge for me that I can find new ways to solve. And like, even though I know I could honestly just install what I typically prefer and have everything I normally do available to me, I like being able to kind of switch to like that entirely different way of doing things and try and really figure out what the benefits might be. Because I mean, at any rate, I mean, these things are still progressing, and there could be things that help us in other environments that are developed in focused environments. So I'd be really curious to see when these kind of crossovers come in as well.
So go ahead.
I had like just one philosophical observation, and that was that everything old is new again, and that we went from giant multi-user systems that everybody logged into from like these terminals down to personal computers where you run everything locally, and now we've gone back again.
Yeah, I think we're gonna keep making these cycles because it's almost like at some point the things that we have, like our use for them or our ways of using them exceed their capabilities. So we switch to ways that can probably fix that. And by the time we blow that out of the water, the other methods have improved enough to now suit us better again. It's super weird. And that's a great way of looking at it. And probably maybe, yeah, it's a little weird.
That's good. So have you thought about installing Linux apps for the one-off things? Because I know you can do that on some of the Chromebooks, to fill the need of those few little things that you need to do.
Yeah, actually, one thing that I've tried to do is test things, especially involving networking stuff. So I typically use things like SyncThing. And one thing I've noticed is that file sharing with Chrome OS is a little weird because they do expect everything to go through Drive or SMB shares, but I don't even see a way to set up a Samba share in Google Chrome. So like, I'm not entirely sure, like they're expecting you to probably have other devices. And so I've noticed that there's some work that needs to be done in how these Linux apps run in terms of performance, despite the fact that Chrome OS is running a Linux kernel. It actually creates a separate Linux environment running on like a virtualized layer. So you can expect graphical performance to not be the best. Like running games on the Linux layer is not really a great option. So anything that needs that like right up there performance of the GUI is probably going to need to be done either as an Android app or maybe even as on another OS. But yeah, it's worked fairly well so far, but I've noticed that depending on what device you're using, certain virtualization components can fail. So I think that's probably why they rolled it out so slowly.
Yep, that makes sense.
Very nice. Very nice. All right. Anybody else kind of thing before we move on?
So I got a desktop handed to me this week.
Ooh.
Wow. Nice.
It was apparently my cousin's, and the company that they got this desktop from, it's a Fujitsu Desktop, but they didn't get it new. They actually had it given to them by something called Cramden Institute, which takes old desktop computers, and if they're too old, like 80s, 90s, they'll scrap them and get the money from that. Or if they're new enough, they will take them, refurbish them, and then give them to people in need. And that's actually how I got my start in Linux. And when I got this desktop, it was running Endless OS. So this desktop is intended for use by a bunch of scouts. So think anywhere from kindergarten to 12th grade, mostly boys, but there's going to be a few girls here and there. So you got to keep an eye on them because they're kids. So because most of these people haven't used Linux before and don't know what they're doing or how to do anything on Linux, and Endless OS is going to confuse them, I wiped it. And I tested 5 different distros. Yes, I did test Draugr OS on it just for the heck of it.
Imagine that.
It ran beautifully. The other 4 I tried were specifically picked because they looked a lot like Windows, and I felt they would be a good fit for the hardware. It has a Core i5 4590, which is 4 cores, 4 threads, base clock of 3.3 gigahertz, boost of 3.9, 8 gigabytes of DDR3 RAM, and I threw in an NVIDIA GT 710 for a graphics card.
So you put on Zorin.
I did test that. Zorin, I was okay with it. I felt it was a little bit heavy, and when I was testing it with the NVIDIA graphics drivers, so Zorin OS actually has an option to compile the NVIDIA graphics drivers and boot up with them, like the proprietary ones. And when I went to boot up, you know that window on Ubuntu that pops up when you're booting from live and it says, do you want to install or try it? Zorin OS has the same thing. And when I tried that, I got to right before that window, and graphically, the system essentially froze. I had a cursor and a wallpaper, and that was it. I could move to a TTY and do stuff in there, but at that point, I couldn't do anything beyond that. If I used no view or went safe graphics, it was okay. But with the proprietary ones, it just threw in the towel. My next option that I thought of was Linux Mint. And I was already hesitant about it because they have locked out Synapse, and I wanted to make sure that Synapse support was an option if for some odd reason they needed to run something. And I figured, okay, this is something that they're going to want to run as a snap for XYZ reasons. So I tried it, worked fine. But in safe graphics, I had some weird graphical issues. It thought I had 2 screens when I only had 1. No idea why. I then went off on a limb and tried a couple distros that I normally wouldn't try because I knew they would fit the bill. I tried UCR and Farron OS, and they both worked perfectly fine. And I ended up settling on Farron OS because with Plasma having come as far as it has, it's much lighter weight than it used to be. And Farron OS has an option in the settings to look almost exactly like Windows 10. And I knew these users seeing that, they would immediately know what to do. And did that, changed a few configuration options, made sure the firewall was enabled and SSH was enabled so I can SSH in and check and see what people are doing. And so far, it's working perfectly fine. I still got to install Wine in case they need to run something Windows, but overall, it's doing great. And once I got the NVIDIA drivers going, it's been fantastic.
So I have 2 things. One, I would recommend not installing Wine, but instead, if they complain, I would recommend that you go and set up Wine, knowing how it works.
Fair.
And then number 2 is, I know you were a scout. Were you able to fill out the Eagle Scout application workbook under Linux? Just curious. I never got that to work.
Well, I hope I was able to, considering I was running Linux by the time I was in 9th grade full time, and I did earn my Eagle.
I was both of those things too, but I could not get it to open because it was like some old Adobe form fillable format or whatever.
What I did is when I did it, there was a non-fillable version for printing and a fillable version. I got the non-fillable version, loaded it up in LibreOffice Draw, and just edited it like that. Because all a PDF is basically an image. So you can edit it just like an image, and that's what I did. And it worked perfectly fine.
Awesome. I should have done that. Oh, well. That's a couple of years water to the bridge.
Yeah. But yeah, this is going to be used by a bunch of scouts, and hopefully it'll bring them over to the dark side.
Dan, what did I tell you? So, Restream, yeah, it tweeted out last week's tweet. Said, "Hey, we're going live." Tweeted out a link for last week. It's fantastic.
Whoops-a-daisy.
I might have retweeted that without verifying.
That's great. That's fantastic. I love it.
That's perfect.
I actually noticed. I just didn't want to bring it up.
And it's Leo $Chavez.
It's gonna stick, isn't it?
You left out a dollar sign. It's Leo $dollar sign.
That's right. Dollar sign. Yeah.
What's happening?
Oh,
Pure money, man.
Same old. Just enjoying the weekend. Last free
Nice.
weekend before classes start again. So
Yeah.
trying to live it up.
Yep. Living large. All right. I guess, Leo, you got anything you want to bring up before we move into our app list or no?
Oh gosh, you put me on the spot that fast.
Well, I mean, I don't know. We're going into the
I might
app
come
list.
up with something interesting soon.
Okay.
But
all right. We're going to head into our 21 must-have apps for Dan. What did we do last time?
I wasn't here last time, so
it's all your
I
fault, then.
apologize. I don't remember.
It was
9 tweaks, I believe, was the last one.
You are right,
no.
Colin.
It was.
We
Gnome
spent
tweaks.
over an hour, I think, talking about gnome
Yeah.
tweaks.
Yeah, it was
Like, who
exhilarating.
knew?
It was.
Yeah.
Wowie.
Who knew? But all right, so that is number 14 on the list. So we're getting up there. We're over halfway through this list. The next one is I don't think we're going to have a whole lot of conversation about it, but it is an RSS client, because I don't know how many guys here, or Barb, I don't know how if you even use a
I love RSS.
RSS.
I love RSS.
Okay, so Feeds is the client name, and that is on the list at number 15 for must-have apps. So the first question is, 1, do you use RSS feeds? And 2, then do you use a web-based reader or an actual client on the desktop? So again, whoever wants to put their hand up to jump into conversation, the virtual hand, Daniel, the virtual hand.
Oh, yeah, I forgot. Sorry. It's been a
That
long
was
week.
perfect.
It's all good though.
And none of my teachers know the virtual hand exists.
No. But anyway, so Daniel, let's start with you. Do you use RSS feeds? You already said you did. Do you use a web-based client or a desktop-based client?
So I use I've used Feeds in the past, I believe. I liked it, but I have also used Newsboat, which is a terminal one, and that one's kind of neat. You know, makes me feel like a hacker, and I use the terminal a lot anyway. But I actually honestly read a lot of news feeds on my phone. I had some app from F-Droid. I can't remember what it's called, but it has a green logo. It's called like Feed Reader or something. But yeah, just if I permitted, just a quick plug for RSS. It is it's a great, like, not invasive way to keep up with news and things, where like it's not, unless you have your reader, a reader that does this, which I don't know of any that do, is not going to ping you all the time. You don't get a bunch of emails, but you can stay up to date with stuff. So like I'm subscribed to Planet OpenSUSE. And so that means mostly I get Nate's blog, but I get to see when new snapshots come out and like any interesting development changes, or I'm subscribed to Front Page Linux, all this stuff. And it's a great way for me to keep tabs on all these things in a non-invasive way, where I can just, if I am busy, I can just ignore it for a week and then dismiss all that and start over.
Well, I was a big RSS reader. I mean, I had thousands of feeds in there, and that's kind of why I stopped, because there was just so much, and it wasn't just Linux news; it was regular news, and it was, I even added YouTube video channels to the RSS feed so that every time somebody put out a video, you would get an RSS link to it. There was just so much in it that, I mean, you talk about reading every Telegram message, Dan. This was ridiculous. Reading even if you were just skimming the headlines, I mean, you would just go there and there would be 1,000 articles a day in there. And I have tried every desktop-based RSS reader out there, I believe, anyway. Mm-hmm. And a lot of them are really simplistic and they kind of fall short for what I was looking for. RSS Owl was one of the best RSS feed readers. But then you go into, you're using an RSS application basically. So then you have the choice of opening the articles, either just seeing the article in line, or opening the article either in the RSS reader or your web browser. And that's kind of a tough choice sometimes, because sometimes I want it to be in the web browser because maybe I want to save it somewhere or follow wherever it's going in the browser. But then sometimes you want it in the browser in line, and then you think to yourself, well, maybe that browser's not so secure, so it's a very difficult thing. There's a lot of pieces to it.
So I use Feedly, which is a web-based RSS reader, and that's pretty good. It probably finds that balance that you're looking for, Rocco, honestly, because there is some of it that you can read right there in that. But if you want to go to the article, you can, when you get to the bottom of it, you click on it and it takes you to the actual web page itself. So
yep.
I don't know. I think that's probably the best combination. And generally speaking, I just skim through the headlines. But yeah, that's another one I read.
Well, go ahead,
sorry.
Daniel.
I've looked at Feedly. It's nice. And that is, I just wanted to talk about, or not talk about, but like that's the one where there's like a premium option, and then it has like a Facebook scraper and stuff, which sounds pretty interesting to me as someone who would like to follow a couple of Facebook pages, but doesn't want to use Facebook.
I tried Feedly. It didn't give me, like I said, I've tried all of the desktop ones, and I wanted to have it set up the way I wanted it, kind of like I was kind of picky, I guess. So Feedly doesn't give you near the settings that some of the other ones do. So like InnoReader. InnoReader is an online web-based RSS reader, and it's probably the best in my opinion. It gives you so many custom options to change everything you could think of and filter out all. And they have a premium subscription too as well that you can do, but they have a free version as well. But like I said, I got so into reading the articles that it was like taking up so much time, couldn't do it anymore. Anybody else on the feed reader?
Why do we have double shickles?
Oh, well,
Double down, buddy.
A poor situation where, like, if you restart the browser in Chrome OS, like the whole session kind of sort of like comes back. It's okay. Don't worry.
Yeah, don't worry about it.
Some minor details. I'm kind of weird in that, like, I like to think I don't use an RSS reader, and I don't. I use something that functions very similarly though, and I use like the feeds that come with like the Google app, or like that come with the Google Now launcher, that kind of stuff. And it's kind of cool because, like, I figure if Google's gonna know everything about me anyway, they might as well make it easy for me to get what I want. And so that's kind of what they've done, is like, hey, we know what you like, so here's what you like, and then I can be happy. So it's a good time.
Dave?
I have a question for you, Rocco. Do you when you said you used all the desktop ones, did you ever use Thunderbird?
Mm-hmm.
Because I don't usually use RSS feeds, but every time I set up Thunderbird, it's like, do you want to integrate this as your RSS feed? And I'm like, yeah, okay. But then never get around to actually setting it up.
It's perfectly functional as an RSS reader, but one, again, I'm not a big fan of Thunderbird's look. And two, it doesn't have near the options as some of the other ones. When you're looking at ones that, like I said, RSS-Al was great. Those are built to be an RSS reader. Thunderbird adds that functionality in, and it's functional, but it's not the best. And Donald said he never understood RSS feeds before, so he didn't enjoy them. But I really did enjoy them because you can basically go to any website, and 99.9% of websites out there have an RSS feed, and you can get, say, you go to OMG Ubuntu, you grab the RSS feed, and you open up your feed reader, and it pulls in whatever the last articles are from OMG Ubuntu. So you don't actually have to go to OMG Ubuntu unless you click on one of the links to go there and read an article. A lot of them will let you read it in line. So you're on say you're reading it out of InnoReader, which is a web-based RSS feed reader. You're seeing the actual web page on InnoReader's site, so you're not actually on OMG Ubuntu. Now you can click the link and go there if you want to, but and you can do that for anything. And before a couple years ago when Google Plus was around, you could add Google Plus people's profile to the RSS reader so that every time they made a post on Google Plus, you would get it. And like I said, the YouTube videos was the same way. But like I said, it got so overwhelming because there was so much there. That I just kind of like drifted away from it because who's got time for that, Dan?
I don't read all of my RSS stuff. I'm not going to lie about that one. Leo, do you read all yours?
So I don't have one yet. So I'm listening intently to the conversation here because what I want is a way to do what I'm already doing. Like I already scour the web for news articles so I can do the Full Circle Weekly podcast. And what I want is a solution. And Dan, I think you're probably the closest to this, where my RSS feeds are synced across multiple devices so that when I read one, it stays read. And I don't have to go back over and over and oh yeah, no, I'm sure I got that one. I'm pretty sure I got that one. I'm pretty sure I got that one.
So, Leo, you're a Firefox user, right?
Uh-huh.
Okay, so the thing that I kind of do with the Google Now thing, I believe Pocket is capable of doing. You just have to like get rid of like the default stuff where it's kind of like random, like the doctors won't like you if you do this trick kind of thing.
Oh yeah.
Once you get those things out of there, you can actually tell Pocket like the kinds of things you like, and like it'll start as you're adding things to your collection, like with the little button every now and then, it'll start automatically pulling that stuff in as part of a feed. So you like, and that will translate across devices.
Can I tell it what I want it to get?
Yeah.
Like, can I give it bits.debian.org and it always pull the newest stuff in?
Yeah, there's a way to add that in there.
Okay.
I should
so
mention
that might be a good idea.
that using something like Feedly or InnoReader, I believe, or there's even self-hostable ones like Tiny RSS, where most RSS apps will let you, instead of adding a feed, you can add like an aggregator kind of thing. So you can add that, and then that will sync across everywhere.
Now,
I believe
that's cool. This is tickling my I want to do it myself itch now too. So what is this called?
Well,
Tiny RSS is the self-hosted thing.
I can export my Linux RSS feed list to you, Leo, so that you can import it somewhere, and it has pretty much every Linux.
Thousands. I don't want that.
Well, I mean,
sounds like torture.
Thousands, including regular local news, and everything. But Linux articles, like there's different categories, different sections you have them in. So, and InnoReader and Feedly will both do that, where they will. What you mark as read on the app on your phone will be marked as read on the site when you go there the next time on your desktop. So that's the benefit of doing it online. So,
yeah, I agree. I Feedly just kind of works for me. I mean, I use the app on the phone, and I use the web-based version. So, I don't know.
Okay, so the question is, does Feeds belong in the top 21 Ubuntu apps? Or is this just one of those thrown in there because somebody needs an RSS reader, I guess, maybe?
It is a good GTK RSS reader, I guess.
I don't know if it's necessary, though. I feel like the guy that wrote the post tends to do a lot of RSS, though.
Maybe it is on
But-
his must-have, huh?
Yeah, it makes sense. Steven, you got something?
Yeah, I'd say the fact that we have to discuss who uses RSS and who doesn't kind of answers the question about whether or not it's a must-have app. It certainly is not a must-have app for everyone.
Definitely, I agree.
Agreed.
All right. Anybody want to get in on RSS feeds before we move on? Okay. So number 16 on the list is Steam, and I would have to say that probably belongs on the 21 must-have apps for Ubuntu. So I don't think you'll get any argument out of anybody here. But is there anybody here that doesn't use Steam?
I'll argue if you want me to argue. I'll do it.
Do it. Argue.
Listen, nobody needs games. You guys are just wasting your time. I don't know. You guys could be being productive, making software.
Wait, you know what my dad would say right now? He'd say, "I don't play games."
Oh no, I play too many games. I can't do that for too long.
And buy the
what
game
about
for Windows and use Wine. You don't need Steam.
Well,
I don't game on the
most of
computer.
time,
I'm not a big game player except stupid bubble shooter games on my phone.
Oh my.
There you go.
most of the time when you buy a game for Windows nowadays, unless you find a used disc at like half-price books, it's on Steam. So.
Well,
yeah, but I don't want to require an internet access to play my games.
Do you know about GOG.com?
Yeah.
And also Steam does have an offline mode, and you can play everything in offline mode, assuming it's
if you
actually
download
your
it,
game
yeah.
not shared. Yeah. It's not like it's a streaming.
Who's got
thing or
space
anything.
for all that, dude?
It's
Stop it,
it's not
Dave.
a
Stop
must-have. It's not a must-have app for me.
No, Colin, you don't care for it?
No, it's not a must-have app for me. I don't install Steam because I don't play games, so it's not a must-have app unless I, have this thing where I've decided I'm going to be a gamer from now on. But it's good to see that Steam does so well for everybody in the Linux community. It's great, but for me, it's not a must-have.
And some form of gaming app, but most of the stuff you get on Steam, if you don't have Steam, you can usually find it on Lutris or, one of the other gaming sites like GOG to be able to get onto your system. So, some form of gaming app maybe, but Steam specifically, that I don't know.
Well, I think it's the most popular gaming app.
It's the only place that I think you can find almost everything. Right, like I couldn't. There are certain games that I could not play at all without a Steam account, whereas I have a GOG account, but I could buy all those games on Steam if I chose.
And they have done an amazing amount of work working with the Wine development people to make so many things work better in Linux.
Well,
I would have thought.
Go ahead, Colin.
Sorry, Rocco. I was going to say, I would have thought a must-have app is something that makes you productive on your desktop, as far as doing things. Whereas Steam is a gaming app, so it's not like a must-have for the system itself. That's just the perspective I see it from.
For some people, it is productive because they must benchmark out there. And for some people, they need a moment to relax so they don't get stressed by work, because if they get too stressed, they are unproductive.
And you could make the same argument about a news reading app as you could about Steam.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think Steam's probably more must need than your RSS reader.
Yes.
Unless you're using Chrome OS, I mean, a web browser isn't.
Oh yeah.
Steam for Chrome OS, I heard it's coming apparently.
Go Stadia.
It's doable.
So in this list, we've been discussing alternatives to this. So for example, when we did GIMP, I think it was, we just discussed some of the alternatives. Are there any alternatives to Steam that you guys use? I know I have not been successful in getting any of the alternatives installed and playing. I know some people can and some people have. I just have not been successful, like Origin, Epic, GOG, and all those other ones. So
the only legitimate good alternative I know of is Legendary, and if I'm not mistaken, it's still in alpha, and that's for Epic Games.
Right.
Yeah. I think
Lutris.
Yeah.
Well, I mean,
There's a
Lutris-
lot of games on Lutris that I play
Well-
that work just as well as on Steam.
A lot of the reason that I think Lutris is big is because it can help you get the Epic launcher and the Origin launcher working, so
Yeah.
that you can get those games that run through those launchers to work. I do the BattleNet launcher myself through Lutris.
I do BattleNet and what's the awful Ubisoft one that you must have? I forget what it's called.
Yeah.
You play.
You play and you play up for that. Lutris.
I think my favorite launcher is probably the Minecraft launcher. That one's native. That works. So, you know.
Do you use multi-MC?
I mean, if you want to go down that route, then play on Linux. It's a great launcher, you know?
Yeah, I don't know. But like I said, Leo, we're going to have to talk later because I have not been successful in getting those launchers, especially BattleNet, to launch. So we're going to have to talk later.
There's a lot of work to be done in a lot of that. But, you know, even though Lutris is a very, you know, press the install button and it kind of goes, there's a lot of footwork you got to get done a lot of times to get those things to work just right. So
I
we'll
have
talk later.
some. I'm not sure if this is news to anybody anymore, but it's very exciting. And the Lutris dev has gotten enough funding that he's working. You know how before Proton was a thing, Lutris had like a wine Steam runner, where there would be like one wine prefix for all of the Steam games, and you wouldn't have to install Steam for every separate Steam game. There would just be one. Does that?
Yeah.
Yeah. He's working on doing that for BattleNet and for Origin.
Nice.
Sweet.
Well, I mean, like BattleNet, that would be great, but although like games like Call of Duty still aren't going to play, not the multiplayer.
True, but there are lots of like instead of having to open up instead of having to either have multiple copies of BattleNet or have something that's called BattleNet and then have to actually launch your game from BattleNet, then you'll have one BattleNet, but you'll have, I guess, StarCraft and World of Warcraft and Diablo are the ones.
Well,
that
Chris
work.
Ty just did a video, I think, on being able to launch games without the launchers themselves. And I forget exactly what he used on that.
Daniel, I think what you're talking about is running them separately, right?
Well, I'm saying that with the thing he's working on, you won't have to like do the first time setup and log in and everything for each separate game.
Yeah, I don't.
But they will appear as
I just wing
did he
it.
finish it?
It works. No, this has been me for the past long time.
Oh, okay.
I mean, I just install World of Warcraft, and then any other game on the launcher I want, I just click on it, click install, hope for the best, and it works.
My motivation for this, for the reason I'm excited for this, is because then I'll have like I'll have all the games, and then I can just add them to the Steam logo, or to the Steam launcher, and it works. Anyway,
Big Pod, do you have something else?
Well, I play mostly games that are on BattleNet, so for two of them, I can get myself running it in Vine, Hearthstone, and World of Warcraft. But the one I play mainly now, that's Call of Duty Modern Warfare, that one doesn't work. So Windows it is for me. And
I have myself done some videos on setting up Steam and BattleNet, getting World of Warcraft going and all that sort of thing. And BattleNet, I think it's BattleNet, isn't it? They just keep moving the goalposts for the wine structure and all that all the time. It just changes constantly. That's why it's a very hard thing to set up in Linux a lot.
Colin, you don't play games.
No, I don't, but I was setting it up for someone there at one stage. So, yeah, I've actually played World of Warcraft in Linux Mint at about 120 frames per second quite a while ago. So that was pretty good result on that. Yeah.
I've not seen any of the issues with BattleNet. I think maybe I've just been lucky, but since 19.0 in Mint and through all the upgrades, I don't think I had to reinstall it once or fiddle with it at all. Lutris just.
I thought you were going to say like 1990 something. I was like, oh gosh, how long has he been doing this?
For a long time.
Longer than World of Warcraft,
I
apparently.
grew up playing the original Diablo, moved to Diablo 2. Yeah, it's been a while.
All right. Anybody
Yeah,
else
you're
on
using-
Steam?
Yep. So you're using Lutris, Leo, not Wine. That doesn't use Wine, does it, or it does?
It does
Yeah, it
use
does.
one, but it does it all for you in the background.
Right. That may be why
Oh,
I'm
okay.
having any issues
Yeah,
with it.
so
That's
instead of
probably
you
why.
having to work through it.
Yep.
Points for Lutris.
All right. Moving on to the next one, number 17. I think is actually a pretty good one, and one that Connor talked to me about. You Launcher. You Launcher is a app launcher for Ubuntu, and I think other ones, Linux Mint and stuff. But it's basically a launcher like KRunner, if you're familiar with KRunner for KDE. This works on GTK desktops, and it's control and space, and you have a launcher that you just start typing whatever it is, and it say you want to find Firefox, control space, and you start typing Firefox. Now, some people will not find it useful to use a launcher because they'll have either a dock with their favorites in it, or they'll just, I've heard, hey, if I want something, I'll just go to the menu and get it, But for other people who find these launchers useful, ULauncher is actually a pretty good one. What do you guys think?
The launchers sound useful, except I don't see the point of this one because it's built into GNOME. It does the same thing. When you hit the super key and you start typing, it's the same thing.
I'm not sure if it brings up the same results or not.
It does. It brings up files. It brings up settings. It brings up apps. It brings up. I do not know if it brings up pages in your browser. I think that's because KDE, like the Plasma browser integration, has been spoiling me. But it brings up lots of different kinds of stuff, and I wouldn't be surprised if ULauncher just gives. It might be for people that don't want it taking over their entire screen, but it's using the same stuff on the back end, maybe.
I think that's the big thing. Yeah, you don't have to have all the apps, come out like it would when you hit the super key. Can just launch this little minimal thing that gives you your app launcher.
I think then you are missing an opportunity to open 50 windows, then press the button and see what it does, because that really seems like the ultimate goal.
Well, it's very fun, yeah.
It's fun.
Well, it does. It does say on the website you can add extensions to the U launcher, and it gives you the capabilities of launching dictionary definitions, copy emoji to clipboard, launch web services, and more. So that's what it says.
I've seen some integrations with certain apps, actually. Certain app developers have little plugins for ULauncher. And I think this is kind of like Alfred on Mac OS. I don't know if any of you are familiar with that. But like you can do like very specific things in apps from the launcher without even having to like open the app. So it can be pretty handy to configure to your liking.
Yeah, it's nice you brought up Alfred, because Albert is another one of these launchers. And obviously KDE has their their launcher, but LXQt also has one that's pretty similar.
KRunner does so much though, dude.
It does.
Does so much more than just find apps.
With tiling window managers, it's absolutely essential. With full-blown desktop environments, personal preference.
Yep.
I wouldn't consider it essential for desktop environments. I would consider it essential for tiling window managers.
Menu is awesome. So is Rafi.
Yep.
Even the Whisker menu, you can actually search the web from the Whisker menu. You know that. That you can do. I can't remember what the symbol is that you type, but you type a symbol in the Whisker menu, and it'll go directly to a web search.
Rss, how about you? What are you feeling?
I personally use Rofi. That way I can also launch my scripts whenever I need to. Versus using the menu.
How is that set up?
Rofi, there's like different modes. One of them gets your scripts, I think, and then the other one is only like the programs. The other one, the one with the scripts, is kind of a mix, but there's different modes. It's very customizable. You can make your own menu. I think people even say you can use it to change windows with it.
Another thing about Rofi is it includes a D menu mode, and so this is either Rofi in D menu mode or just plain D menu. you can like feed it a list, whether that's like a bunch of lines of text or like a directory listing or something. And then it will give you that menu. You like start typing and it will like, you know, search through them and everything. And then it will spit whatever your, by default, it's just an application launcher, but you can pipe things into it and then it will spit what you choose out the other end. So it can like be a really flexible filter for whatever you want it to be.
Like
with
hamsters
script,
in a tube.
I guess.
Yeah. All right. Big Pod.
Well, I use Rofi, and I use it because I got used to it while I was on OpenBox, where I had it set up, and a lot of people I know, especially those who have tiled window managers, use the menu, and both of those, as Aris and Daniel said, have ability to script. You can create your own menu. I know some even have file managers implemented in the menu, so we can do quite a lot with them.
Yeah, and Vince brought up Synapse, I think it's called, and that's another one that you can, another launcher. But I mean, they all basically do the same thing. I think the only one that's set apart is KRunner because of the added functionality that it has.
I think it's just because you like it, Rocco.
I do like it. I wish it was in GNOME, but
KRunner is one of the best. That's for
it's
sure.
Incredible.
Yeah,
really is.
Yep. All right. Should ULauncher be on the must-have app list?
I think if you're unhappy with the menu, it should be. But I don't know if ULauncher should be on there. I think that's a very personal preference.
I'm
really falling in love with Rofi as well.
I personally think that this list should be two lists. One is must-have apps for Ubuntu, and one is apps you should really you should really try for Ubuntu. You might like them.
That's a good thought, Daniel. All right. Anybody else for ULauncher? All right. No. We are going to move on. Next one, 18, is VS Code. So I'm going to say that.
One.
Yeah, I'm going to say that's going to be a lot of a personal choice there. And it might get into some rough topics there.
Honestly, for a lot of people, if you're writing code at all, usually scripts, I would say gedit's enough. If you actually need a dedicated IDE, give Geany a shot first. And if you need something more than that, sure, go right ahead. But for everything I do, I use Geany. It's all I need.
Sublime.
So, Thomas likes Vim.
Right?
No, I hate Vim. Hate Vim with a burning passion. I purge it every time I make a new install.
There we go.
Thomas's Linux card has been revoked. Dave, you said you use
Sublime.
Sublime Text. Yep.
Which is actually what VS is based on.
No, VS is based on Atom, or it tries to be Atom, but better.
VS is based on Atom, but Atom is based on Sublime.
So, yes. Steven, go ahead.
For me personally, I would say either Vim with plugins or SpaceMax. I'd say that the VS Code is definitely a very specific application that is, it's definitely a personal preference thing. Not sure it's a necessary app. And what about the people who aren't programmers at all? Do they need VS Code?
So
no.
I think I'm kind of seeing a pattern with this list in that like they do touch on certain niches, and so it's probably likely that like this list covers different areas of the bubble, even if, because I'm pretty sure the person who wrote this is Joey, right? And I don't think he's a programmer, so it's not like, you know, he's covering that particular thing for himself, very likely, unless he writes in it, which I hope not. But I think probably the reason VS Code was chosen was not only because it is so prevalent. Like the reality of it is like VS Code is just a very popular editor, but it's also got a really large support base and like a lot of backing, and that can be very handy to have. especially if you're dealing with like plugins and extensions that like maybe might have issues at some points, or maybe probably need a little extra attention to them. Like the reality of it is that having that support base, having that backing, having that kind of common situation is really useful, and I think that can create a lot of the draw to an editor.
Yeah,
that makes sense, but I would say that I still don't know that it's essential for all new Ubuntu users. Seems like it might be a stretch.
Yeah, this list comes up like as we talked about it in the previous episodes. It's you look at the title and it's kind of deceiving.
It's very random.
Yeah, it's very random to say that like VS Code would be on the must-have Ubuntu app list.
Yeah.
But what are you gonna do?
I just use Notepad.
There you go. Leo, go right ahead.
So it's definitely not a must-have app for everybody, but I write a lot of Markdown. I deal with a lot of bash scripts. I play a lot with systemd units and services and all of that fun stuff. It's essential. It's absolutely essential for me. And I mean, this is coming from a guy that 90% of what I do is I just write Markdown. But the fact that I can write it in the left-hand side, have a preview in the right-hand side to know exactly what it's looking like on the fly is pretty fantastic. And that's something that I'm in Linux Mint. So Zed, that didn't give that to me. Honestly, pretty much the only apps that do give that to me are VS Code or Atom spinoffs. That's pretty much it. And the color coding in that, which gedit and Zed and everybody else do, it just seems to me that VS Code is just a really good intuitive app for people that write a lot.
Good point. Daniel Bourne.
Yeah, so I'm a Vim guy. I use Vim everywhere that I can. But hold on, babe. Shh. Sorry. She just happened to come in to say goodnight.
It's all good, brother.
It's all good, man.
Yeah, so I'm a Vim guy, been a Vim guy for a long time. I do appreciate VS Code now that I use it more at work. But I heard about this project and I've done a little bit of looking to it called VS Codium, which is basically VS Code with all of so they basically use the same GitHub repo, but they let you, they compile it before Microsoft adds all the telemetry. Shh, Zoe, you need to be quiet. I'm talking. Relax. Sorry. She doesn't know I'm talking to people. Anyway,
Right.
So I've thought about switching to that, but they use it a lot at work, right? So hold on, guys.
We'll get back to you.
Get back.
Big Pod, go ahead.
Well, I use VS Code on a daily basis, whether it's programming, whether it's just scripting, whether it's just taking notes. VS Code is really powerful, whether it's for just standard stuff or high level. It brings a lot of features. In my opinion, it is what Vim and Emacs are for old school people and older generations of Linux users. It's what VS Code is for newer Linux users. It's de facto standard nowadays, like Vim used to be.
I think he just called me old.
Yep, he did.
There's a special place right here.
Well, I called
for Vim.
Daniel old, and
I'm
I
like
might be
19, man.
older, and I am older than him. So yeah.
I'm just kidding.
If I don't have a GUI, Vim's my go-to, man. I just love smacking DD and just gone.
All right, Daniel, go ahead, brother.
So that VS Codium, and I like the fact that they do have a really good extension for Vim Key Bindings, because my problem is I use Vim for so long that like switching to anything else is just ridiculous for me now, because I have those key bindings so ingrained in me now. Like if I can't do HJKL and move around in that same way and speak the Vim language, it takes me 60 times longer to get anything done. And I've used it at work before and pulled it up, and people at work are like, why are you using Vim? I'm like, because I've been using it forever, and I'm not going to like try to relearn something else now because it's so much faster. But yeah, VS Code, there's a couple of extensions out there that are really good. It gets you pretty close, but I still use Vim at work most of the time.
Colin? I think Colin's frozen. Daniel Stevenson, go ahead.
So I think that VS Code, I am a Vim guy. However, I think it is one among a couple of different options that is really great, for people that want something, that want like an almost IDE out of the box, which Vim isn't. Vim can be a really super awesome almost IDE, and it has all the benefits of it being VI, where it ties into like Unix really closely, but it isn't that way out of the box, and there aren't great like distros of Vim that do that. And I think that like what Steven brought up, you can get something sort of similar to Atom or VS Code or VS Codium with Spacemacs. I've tried that. It was very, I kind of liked it, but then again, I'd been using Vim for a while at that point.
Nano for the win.
Yeah, but so I think for most people, it's a great app. I would if I knew them, I would probably start nudging them towards Vim. But then for it's not for me because I've invested a lot in my Vim setup, and like what Daniel said, other Daniel said, it does have some pretty good plugins for Vim Key Bindings, but the rough edges are just too much for me. Like I'll try to move back and forth between split panes, and the Vim shortcuts don't work, and I'm like, what's going on? Anyway, that's my 2 cents.
Colin, you're back.
Yeah, my internet's just ridiculous this morning. Seriously, I've dropped out about 4 or 5 times. I was going to say I use gedit, and I made a huge leap to Nano.
Yep,
that's all I use. But I find Nano really good just for manipulating those files that I need to use. That's in the system files that where I don't have an open as root on my file browser. So that's what I do.
We're going to lose our Linux card, Colin, for using Nano, but it's okay. All right, so if VS Code should VS Code be on this list as one of the must-have apps?
I think it's probably better suited for the kind of article that's like, check out these top 10 editors that you can use rather than this one.
But now, the only question I have is, I'm trying to figure out where he was coming from when he made this list. So did he just try to throw in one sample, or maybe his opinion of the best?
That's what he puts on his computer.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Like, is it a sample of every type of program that he would like to have on his Ubuntu? I don't know. Are there any other alternatives you guys would put on this list besides VS Code? Or would you not even put this on the list?
I wouldn't even put it on the list. And if you do, gimme. It's already in the repos, and it runs on everything.
I think a suggestion I kind of have is that, like, I know it's not for Ubuntu specifically, but I use something called Elementary Code, which is what their Scratch app that it evolved.
Surprise, surprise.
Yeah, I know. Elementary OS. When did I do that? Is that a thing that I do? But yeah, no, I don't necessarily like, editors are so incredibly like personal, and like it's not quite like a browser where it's very clear what people are using because we have the stats to show it. With editors, it's kind of like everybody's using any random thing, and everybody's editor is configured in some wacky way that makes them look like a psycho killer. That like it's kind of hard to really narrow it down to one or even a few on a list. So probably not.
Yep. All right. Anybody else for VS Code conversation?
I'd say I just agree with Thomas that this is agree with Thomas Day.
I can't believe this.
That Genie is probably a better solution if you're going to recommend something universally. For one thing, it's much more in line with something that someone would use as a regular text editor, as opposed to like VS Code. And also VS Code is just kind of heavy, and I just don't. But I'm a Vim guy, so yeah, I'm used to something being light.
All right. We have 3 more on the list, but we're not going to get to them. Number 19 is Flameshot, and that is a screenshot app. But I don't know. Is that something? Okay, I'll just let you guys talk. Flameshot, 21 must-have apps. What do you think?
Well, I think Thomas might have something to say on this.
Flameshot is amazing. I use it all the time because specifically, you know how normally with the screenshot app, you can choose to either take the whole screen or just a certain portion or something like that. By default, it's resizable, and that's what I prefer, because if it's resizable, I can just do the whole screen if I choose, and it's literally just diagonal, done. And it even has built-in basic editing functionality, so I can do things like a little red box around something I want to highlight, or a circle, or an arrow pointing to something, or even some text in there. So it's very, very basic editing functionality inside my screenshotting tool, so I can very quickly go, hey, we need to change this right here in this larger section, and avoid confusion with just like, hey, screenshot of my whole screen, we need to change this. What do we need to change? And it's configurable, so you can get it to look the way you want. And I'm not just talking like a GTK or Qt theme. It's also, when you go to take the screenshot, the bar around it, the arrows, the circles, all that, little options, you can change the color for that. So you can set it to something that fits your GTK theme or your Qt theme, even if it's not going to honor that. So amazing. I love it. It's fantastic.
A shining review.
Yes.
Jinder, how you feeling?
Well, I have to join the tag team style of agree with Tom tonight.
Oh my gosh.
3 in a row.
I
First
know.
bar,
Usually it's tag team style pick on Tom, but now it's to agree with him. When we ran, I think it was the Deep End Desktop, I sat there for like an hour trying to find one positive thing to say about it, and they had something very similar to this program, and I went and go, okay, I want to get a new screenshot tool, and then I found Flameshot and said, okay, this is, like Tom said, it's the coolest thing. If you ever have to do a screenshot, which I could understand why no one would, or you would, of course, but this is definitely the one to have.
Yeah, Flameshot's good. Spectacle's pretty good too.
It is. Spectacle's great. Gotta say.
That's Qt based, and we're talking about Ubuntu, so.
A guy I know has told me though that Flameshot can also integrate with KDE, and so you don't lose anything from Spectacle, which is shocking to me, but apparently can be done.
Sure. Yeah, Leo, what do you think?
I'm on team anti-Thomas, I think.
All right. Yeah, I'm there with you.
I don't know. I don't. When I take a screenshot, I'm just trying to take a screenshot. I'm not trying to do stuff with it, I guess. So, like with the built-in GNOME one, right? And I'm coming from Linux Mint. I assume it's the same in Ubuntu.
It is.
Where you type in print screen, takes your whole screen. You do Alt print screen, takes your current window, or you do Control Shift print screen, and it lets you draw a box around stuff. Like at that point, I'm done. That is my screenshot takingness. And once I am done with that, I'll import it into GIMP or something like that and do something funny for a thumbnail. Or because a lot of times when I'm taking a screenshot, I'm not trying to annotate it. And, this is just personal, but I'm not trying to annotate it because a lot of times what I'm trying to do is look at this person I'm telling something to. This is this is the screen you're supposed to be looking at. And this is how it's, how it's supposed to look or whatever. So, yeah, I don't know. If I have to spend more than 5 seconds thinking about my screenshot, that's way too long.
There are two standout features of both Spectacle and Flameshot that I need besides those. Or I don't need, but I found that are nice. One is you can draw on it. So like if you need to circle something like this button, or the other thing is that you can upload to Imgur after you take the screenshot. So like and that's an edge case. That's like if you're helping somebody in an IRC channel or something, and they don't have image support.
Makes sense. Colin, what do you think?
I only put my hand up just so I could say I agree with Thomas.
Oh my gosh.
Oh my gosh.
I think we got to end the stream.
If Biddle had titles.
Yeah, right.
If. So I am going to have to agree with Leo. There was a time when I would search out for screenshot tools like this, and then I would probably have to agree with Thomas. But right now where I stand, like, I don't do anything with screenshots except take a screenshot and say, here, this is what I want you to see, my desktop or the window. Like, that's basically it. So all I need is the built-in GNOME screenshot tool, and I'm good.
Yeah, I don't need to circle anything when I'm trying to show you that I'm running BPyTop. That's it. I don't
Right?
need to.
Yeah. Oh, you got to show that off.
All right. So should this be on this list? Or are there other alternatives that are better?
I think for an advanced screenshotter, this is probably the best of the bunch. In terms of, because I know Joey, I think Joey is his name.
Mhm. Yes.
I know he uses it for like pretty much everything. I think he even did a dedicated article on it specifically showcasing a lot of stuff. But like everybody that I've spoken to, like that isn't just using the inbuilt screenshotter of the distro, like GNOME Screenshot or Spectacle. I mean, Flameshot is usually the very first thing I hear come out of people's mouth, or words out of their fingers. I don't.
Yeah. Right.
I think it's a good choice.
All right. Anybody else want to get in on this?
Absolutely not.
Okay. We're moving on.
I'll say something. I didn't know you could blur things and add text, so that's pretty good.
You can blur things?
Yeah.
Yep.
Oh, that's kind of cool.
So you can kind of redact them.
Yeah, that's
Make
actually
things
useful.
look like
There's
explicit
some
when
great
they're not.
features in it. I just
That might
don't
be
have a need
useful.
for them right now. So there you go. All right. Number 20. This is Leo, this one's for you.
I'm ready.
NeoFetch.
I just want to show you that I'm on Linux Mint. That's pretty much it. And then I'm going to use the built-in shotter tool to take a screenshot of that and then send it to you.
But wait,
See, I was thinking you needed Flameshot to get your, NeoFetch.
Yeah, it's Flameshot, dependent on.
I think you need Flameshot to blur out the fact that you're on Linux Mint.
Oh, yeah. Nah. Mhm.
Okay, so should NeoFetch be on the must-have app list?
Definitely not.
I think everybody will at least try it once.
Okay, so I'm looking at this list from maybe, I don't know, maybe a new user standpoint where you type in apps for Ubuntu because you're just new to Linux and you get to this and you're like, yeah, it's cool, but man, I don't know if it's necessary for all that.
Well, it depends on how you got in. Are you like, did you just...
You're right.
Do you just install this in a vacuum and then you don't know anybody, or did you like get into like, I don't know, Linux podcasts or something, and now you're like, I want to tag my screenshot on the forum of my brand new Linux desktop kind of thing?
Yeah, new users don't rice their desktop and show it off. I mean, what are you saying?
So The question is, are there alternatives to NeoFetch? Are there better
Yes.
ones?
Yeah.
Or should this be on the list? Dave?
There are alternatives. Whether they're better, I just throw NeoFetch because it's already in my bash configuration files. So that's why I just put it in, because it's what's already there and I don't feel like changing stuff. I'm too lazy.
Green Fetch is an older one, but everything I know is that it's not as good. I know there's one other that's like I don't remember the name. I just know that DistroTube prefers it because it's faster. Because he has the fetch thing run on every new terminal for whatever reason. But the pictures aren't as pretty, and I don't think it gives you as many stats. So NeoFetch.
I'd like to point out I also have NeoFetch built into my bash shell or my fish shell. So like every time I open a terminal, it's there. Oh yeah.
Yep.
I do as well. My preference between the two is entirely dictated by how much I like the icon that it prints out, the ASCII thing, on whatever distro I'm on. On Ubuntu, I prefer screen fetch. On Drugger OS, I think NeoFetch is the only one that supports it. So my options are limited. Beyond that, it's literally just like, whichever one I prefer the icon for. In my experience, though, NeoFetch is slower than screen fetch, so I tend to prefer screen fetch overall.
Daniel?
The one that Daniel Stevenson there was mentioning that DistroTube was using, I think it's called pfetch. And I think it's actually written by the same person that wrote NeoFetch. If I remember that whole conversation or that whole video that DT did, I think they wrote a lighter weight version because people were like, it's kind of slow sometimes.
I also like NeoFetch because I don't use the logo of the OS I'm using, but I actually have a picture that I put in there that I enjoy. So it's not, it's the same on every operating system, not whatever the logo is.
All right. Anybody else for NeoFetch?
I'm not sure if it's a must-have app though, to be honest.
No.
Probably not a must-have app.
I don't know if it's must-have. I mean, if we're trying to encourage people that come from Windows over to Linux to install a bunch of apps, I don't think NeoFetch should be on there, because seriously, how many people know that they're even on Windows 10? And further, how many people know that they're on Windows 10 version 1909?
I don't think it's not a must-have app. It's a will-have app, as in you will eventually install it.
Yeah.
You don't need help.
Well, to be fair, this article is like not for just new users. I just always take whenever I look at something like that, but it's not designed, like he didn't say, hey, this is a must-have app for new users. It's just, yeah. And number 21 is the last one on the list, but he gives some other ones, and I don't know if we'll get to them, but Shortwave. So Shortwave is a internet radio app. And I don't know, should that be on the list? Does anybody listen to a radio app on their computer?
Called Spotify, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's,
Didn't we kind of cover that?
I do.
I mean, I feel like we
I
covered
actually.
that.
Colin, do you listen to radio app on your computer?
I do when I'm listening to if the footy's not on the if I'm watching AFL football and it's not on TV, I can listen to it live from their website.
Is this football or is this?
So that's the
football?
only time I use a radio app.
I mean, is this football or is this soccer?
Aussie rules.
Okay,
Aussie rules football. Yeah, the aerial ping pong stuff.
Right.
Yeah, but
Are you from Victoria,
I
Colin?
listen to. Well, I am originally from Victoria. I'm in Perth now. So
I was gonna say because up in Queensland, it's like NRL's the big sport up here, but
that's
I know
correct.
that,
Yes, it is.
AFL's big down there in Victoria.
Yep. So that's the only time I really listen to a radio app is when I want to, because I can't see it on TV, so I have to listen to it on radio. I don't know if that would be handy. I've never tried it, never really heard of it, to be honest. So, yeah.
Well, there was one, and I don't know how they pronounce it. It was G radio or radio. I don't know how you use it. I don't.
Radio.
Yeah,
X-Radio.
that was another one, another option. But I thought I heard that one was not being developed anymore. Is that right? Am I losing my mind when I just remember something like that it's not being developed anymore.
I'm not sure.
Well, it doesn't surprise me too much. There's a lot of other apps that do other things specifically, but incorporate this, right? So you just got to drop in the stream link into your, whatever app, and it'll pull it off, I think. Or a lot of it's web-based, so you don't need a specific app for that, I guess.
So incidentally, talking about radio, so I watched Joe Collins' video on Linux Mint 20, the updated video. So he did a video on Linux Mint, and he had said some good things about Linux Mint on it, but he also said that he disagreed with the whole snap thing, and it caused this whole big uproar because he was saying that he was using Ubuntu and he wasn't using Linux Mint. So he did an updated video where he installed Linux Mint, and he praised it and for 20 minutes, and then he mentioned the fact that it doesn't have snaps and he doesn't like that and blah blah blah. But anyway, he gave the radio station that he works for now again, because he used to be in radio years ago, and now he's back in radio again, and it's a country station down in Southern Virginia. And I just happened to see the video last night, so I put the live feed on when he was on, and it was hilarious to listen to it because he's an awesome DJ, dude. He's an awesome radio announcer. And that was really cool to sit there and be familiar with who he was and then listen to him on the radio. So you guys should check that out. Check out his latest video.
Cool.
So do you reckon I could get his radio station from here on through the internet?
Yeah.
You probably could you?
Yeah.
I would think so.
Yep. It is.
I might try that.
Let me, while we're doing our closing out, I'll try to get you the link, Colin.
Yeah, sure. No worries. Yep.
That's going to wrap it up for us. We have been through the 21 apps now. Next week, we're probably going to go through he gives the old infomercial style, but wait, there's more. And he gives a few honorable mentions for apps. So we'll take a look at them. But that'll wrap it up for that 21 app list. If anybody has any suggestions on topics that we should cover, or maybe lists like this that we want to go through, just send them in, get us on Telegram or something, and let us know, because that would be great. But we are out of time. So Dan, last word.
Well, thanks as always, Rocco. It's been fun. It's hard to believe 2 hours have flown by here. So check out Linux User Space. We dropped an episode last week, and we're getting ready to record another one, so we'll keep them coming. You can join us on the Telegram group, linuxuserspace.show/Telegram, and give us some feedback over there. That'd be cool.
Yep, absolutely. Thomas, last word.
Well, thank you everyone for agreeing with me tonight for once.
Don't get used to it.
I won't. I'm enjoying it right now. Hopefully I'll get my Raspberry Pi 4 here in the mail here soon. And other than that, Drugger OS version 7.5.1 is being released next week on Saturday. Heck yeah. Good night.
All right, Daniel Bornt, last word.
Rocco, thanks for the stream again. As always, Dan, everybody who helps out. Appreciate you guys so much. Glad I could be here this week. Always good conversation. Always learn a lot. Always learn new tidbits, and it's always fun to hang out with you guys. I appreciate you all very much, and hope to see you all next week.
All right, Rss, last word.
Thank you very much for the stream. See you next week.
All right, Tony, last word, sir.
Yeah, thanks for another great show, Rocco. Interesting conversation. Enjoyed it. Managed to keep awake again. Always a good thing. Not much else to say, really. So take care, everyone, till next week, and hope to see you all then. Same time, same place.
Dave.
Thank you, Rocco and company, for welcoming me back and for putting on a great stream. My question for Tony would be, did he have all these apps installed before the show went live? And it's good to be back, and hopefully I will be back again next week.
Nice. Before we go any further, Colin, I put the link for Joe Collins' radio station in YouTube chat, and there's a listen live button on the top. So he is live, I think 7 to midnight, I think it is, on weekdays. So Steven, last word.
Thanks for the stream, Rocco. Good to hang out with you guys, and look forward to seeing you next week.
Jinda.
Thank you, everyone. I hope to see you all next week.
Daniel Stevenson.
Thanks, Rocco and Dan and everyone who helped out for this stream, and for the interesting conversation, everybody. And I hope to see you all next week.
Leo?
I hear Warpinator has a flat pack now. So, yeah, if you want to start pushing files around your network without any hassle, there it is. But yeah, thanks, Rocco, for the stream. I appreciate it. Thank you guys for welcoming me here. Have a good one.
Chickle.
Well, it was really good to be here tonight. It was really good to see some friendly faces and cause some commotion among you guys. That's always a lot of fun. Anyway, I hope everybody's doing safe. I know there's some rough things going on with the weather, and there's a lot of people struggling. So the only thing I really want to get out there more than anything else is, like, if you have a chance to help someone, I mean, just do it. Whatever you can. It really makes a big difference as a whole. So,
Colin.
Yes, thanks, Rock and Co, for the platform. Some interesting conversations tonight. I thought actually tonight was the 21 must-have agreements with Thomas actually tonight, but seemed to be the case. But yep, everyone have a nice week. Enjoy and take care. See you next week.
Computer Kid, you there?
I made it in at the very last second, apparently. It's great. I came in here at the beginning and then, oh wait, am I low?
You're low, dude. We can't hear you.
Hang on. Pop open Pavu control. Huh. Am I? Oh, it's recording from the wrong microphone. Wait.
Pulse Audio to the rescue.
Yep.
I love you, Pulse Audio. Okay, there we go. Zoom was recording the entirely wrong mic. I made it at the last second. It's great. I was at the beginning and the end. Sorry, guys. I had a family movie night. Gotta balance the Biddle family and the quote-unquote real family. So, I'll probably listen to the podcast version, and I hope I can make it next week. See you guys next week.
All right. Thank you, Dan and Chickle, for helping out tonight. I appreciate it, especially with topics. It was great. Linux User Space, as Dan has mentioned, we are recording an episode tomorrow night, and I think maybe it's time we blame everything on Joe this time, right?
Oh,
that's what we always do. Okay. Yeah. So check that out. The following week we will be dropping that episode, but maybe, well, I won't say anymore. I'll leave that alone. Until next week, because we will be back next week. There's one more week before Biddle Europe, so Biddle Europe will not be next week. The next week is the 5th, and the following week is the 12th. So mark your calendars for Biddle Europe on the 12th. But until next week, long live Linux.
Bye.
Hello and goodbye.
Bye.